23rd place Queen's Park Rangers host 9th place Norwich City at Loftus Road on Saturday afternoon. So I caught up with Rob Butler, host of BBC Radio Norfolk's The Scrimmage, to find out how the Canaries have fared this season so far. I'll round off the preview with a few words on Rangers, so make sure you stick about to the end. And if you're not already subscribed or following on the platform of your choice, then please do so if you enjoy this preview. Hi Rob, how's it going?
Great to see you, Connor, and thanks for inviting me on the podcast.
No problem at all. Obviously, we're here today to chat about QPR v Norwich on Saturday afternoon. So let's start off by talking about Norwich's season so far. Ninth in the Championship currently, 5 points off of the playoffs, unbeaten since the international break, and 10 goals scored in the past two games versus Argyle and Luton. So must be feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah, we had a bit of a bad spell before that week, as you mentioned. And we can include 2 goals before that at West Brom as well. So that's 12 goals in a week, as you mentioned, 10 at home. So it's been a bit of a turnaround, and it's no coincidence, of course, that loads of players have just come back from injury and suspension. Kenny McLean's come back from his 4-match ban. He's probably Norwich's most vital player. Marcelino Nunez is back as well. He came in. He came on as a substitute actually in the second of those games that you mentioned against Luton, and just looked absolutely brilliant. He looked like he'd just picked up the Ballon d'Or or something and come back with it and started to kick on again. So yeah, I mean these are massive players, just to name two that Norwich have got coming back. And to be fair to the new manager, Johannes Hoff, he kind of been saying that to us in press conferences pre-match. Wait until the players come back. And I think fans have really understood that as well. That they've kind of understood that Norwich have had a lot of injuries. They've had a bit of suspension as well. And these players are coming back. And surprise, surprise, the corner has turned.
So what do Norwich fans make of the new manager and what's his style of play like?
Yeah, good question. It's what you'd expect from most managers these days. I'm sure you're seeing the same at Loftus Road with Cifuentes. How they want to play out from the back, and it doesn't always suit the Championship because clearly defenders aren't quite as skillful as perhaps they would be in the Premier League. But that's his style, and I think fans understand that now. It started at Norwich with Daniel Farke. He certainly had that style, and I think at the start, fans were a bit grumbling about it, and they were a bit upset because there were mistakes. Mistakes still happen. There's still the misplaced pass at the back, or the goalkeeper, manages to mess it up if he's got it at his feet. That would be more George Long than Angus Gunn, our number one. But yeah, so fans are really buying into it. They're really happy with the way Johannes Hoff settled in. The one thing that's really a win for Johannes is the way he speaks in post-match and press conferences and post-match stuff and pre-match stuff. He really speaks honestly, and he explains what's happening. He explains why that happened. He explains why he did or didn't make that substitution. And I think Norwich fans, like all football fans, like QPR fans as well, just want a bit of honesty. They don't want managers to come out and just say, oh, I thought we were brilliant today, even though we lost 4-0. You don't get that from Johannes Hoff. And I think any manager that goes down that road is going to have most of the crowd won over because they just understand that he's being serious and he knows what he's talking about and he's not just kind of having excuses and what have you. So all in all, people are really happy with Johannes Hoff. I won't speak for all Norwich fans, but the ones I speak to are really happy with him. They understand the project, and I think they're all quite excited about it. Despite, as you mentioned, we're not quite in that playoff mix yet, but things are looking good.
Presumably, sort of finishing inside the playoffs is the goal after last season.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'm not just going to say this because you're a QPR fan. This is a QPR podcast, but I think both Norwich and QPR realistically should always be in the promotion hunt. That's kind of where we've been, and we're clubs that are quite similar. We're clubs that have kind of been locked together in battles over the years, and I think we said it on our BBC podcast the other day. I think we've played you more than any other team in the history of football. I think that's still the case. Incredible stat, but it figures. I remember growing up watching us play QPR week in, week out. In over the years in First Division and what have you. Obviously not playing you every week, but it felt like it sometimes. But yeah, so I think Norwich should be in the top 6. That's where you should be. I think your boys should be in the top 6 as well, and that's kind of where we are. We're never going to be necessarily a definite established Premier League team, but we can strive for that. That's kind of the target. But Norwich should certainly be in the top 6 in the hunt for it at least. And I think, obviously, I would say this, but I think we should be able to compete in the Premier League. That's a work in progress. But yeah, that's where we should be, and that's kind of where we will be, I think, by the end of the season.
So who should QPR be worried about on Saturday afternoon? Obviously, he signs his top scorer with 15 goals in
Yeah.
18 league games, so definitely him. But who else?
Yeah, Boa Science, you mentioned it. He's the one. I think you'll probably put two or three on him. He's just been magnificent. He's probably pound for pound one of the best players in England at the minute. He really is. He's been phenomenal. We can't quite believe it. He was the sort of player that was in and out of the team last season. Always had potential. Clearly, Johannes Hoff Thorup playing to his strengths, and that's kind of working for him. Who else should you look out for? Well, a lot of it does go through Boa Science. You can tell that the team are trying to get him involved at any point. They're trying to make him be on the end of everything. He's actually a winger, but he's kind of scoring all the goals and drifted into the middle. So he's acting as a bit of a number nine as well. Ante Cianats, I'm not going to say you need to watch out for him because he's not covered himself in glory up until the last couple of weeks where he's been absolutely brilliant. He's a young Croatian striker that Norwich signed in the summer, flattered to deceive to start, that needed to find his feet. But in the last couple of games, he scored a couple. He had an incredible assist against Luton where he could have had a hat trick. It was on a plate for him, but there was a better option. Emi Marcondes was to his left, and he laid it on for him. So that said a lot about him as a 20-year-old, that he was that mature that he could do that. So Cianats is in form, so he's one to look at. He's just like your standard big number nine. He's pretty good in the air. He's pretty good with his feet. Quite clever player. So yeah, one to watch there. And Nunez, he probably won't start. He might start. I don't know, but he's still coming back from a 6-week layoff. But Marcelino Nunez, again, is another one of those players. I would say this because I'm a Norwich fan, but he is one of the best players in the league. He is phenomenal. He's been linked with a few sort of bigger European clubs. He's a Chilean international. He kind of sits as a midfielder, but he's got tricks and he'll do what I like about him, and what also can infuriate people is he does try the tricks in his own half as well. And 9 times out of 10 they do come off, and he will get clear. So it's risky, but it's quite good to watch. And when he does a little kind of Cruyff turn in on the edge of his own box, you think, whoa, but it works. So yeah, Marchi and Nunez, complete with his excellent new mullet that he's got. Yeah, we'll see. We'll hopefully see him at some point on Saturday. But yeah, that's it really in terms of going forward. I mean, Kenny McLean again, just pound for pound, one of the best players in the Championship. Not really one to watch because he just does his job, but he does it so well. So yeah, I mean, it's a tricky game for both of us, I think.
So where do the weaknesses lie in this Norwich side? Obviously, you mentioned before the break, I think there were sort of 3 losses on the trot. You
Yeah.
mentioned there were some players out with injury. But yeah, where can QPR get at Norwich?
Well, defensively, it's been like this for a couple of years in Norwich. They do get themselves in a muddle sometimes. They've got, I think Jose Cordoba will be back tomorrow. He's a Panamanian defender, been away with Panama and picked up an injury, but he's going to be back. He's excellent, only 23 years old, and he's quite comfortable on the ball, and that's clearly why Norwich signed him. He's linked with Rangers, the Glasgow Rangers, and we managed to swoop in and get him before they did. So that was a bit of a coup. But he's a great centre half. And he's okay, but with Shane Duffy, who I'm not knocking Shane Duffy, who is a standard championship and he's played in the Premier League as well, but he's a well-known sort of championship centre half. He's been around the block, but he can get himself in a bit of a muddle. He's a good footballer. He's got a good football brain. He does, he is good on the ball, and that's clearly why he's there and keeping people like Grant Hanley out of the squad. But he does sometimes just switch off a little bit, and there's a couple of times in the last couple of games where a few wayward passes, he sort of passes it without thinking, or he'll lay one back to the goalkeeper that's a bit short. So I think that's kind of it's just that which all teams do now, really, is if you press, you will force Norwich into mistakes. I'm sure QPR do and will press, so you will force them into mistakes. So it's like unforced errors, really, which I think is the story for a lot of Championship teams and the lower Premier League teams as well.
Yeah, of course. It definitely chimes true with QPR, that's for sure. Now, Norwich haven't lost to QPR in our past 9 meetings. So to round us off, let's get your score prediction for Saturday.
Well, I'm not very good at predictions. I won't give you a score, but I think Norwich will win. And I'll say by one clear goal. I'm not gonna be too excited, but I know we've just got a pretty good record there, as you said. I think our fans love going there, as we mentioned on our show the other day.
Mm.
I love going to QPR. I think it's wonderful. It's just proper football club, lovely little ground. I'm not just saying all this. It's just great. It's great atmosphere. We'll pack it out down there as well. And it's because it's only a 2-hour train journey, isn't it? Which is good for Norwich fans. It's a short one. So I think we'll get the win by the odd goal, but I think it'll be entertaining, and I think there will be goals. I think it could be like a 4-3 or a 3-2 or something like that, maybe.
Great. Well, Rob, thank you so much for joining me today, and all the best for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and all the best to QPR. As I say, I'm not just saying it, Connor, but I've loved chatting to you. Great club, and I want you to be up there with us. I really do.
Nice one. Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much to Rob once again for joining me for this preview. You can check out the scrimmage via the link in the description below. This is obviously going to be a tough one for QPR, with Norwich in red hot form following back-to-back home wins. 6-1 against Plymouth Argyle and 4-2 against Luton Town. But from a Rangers perspective, I am feeling quietly optimistic after the results that we gained last week and that performance at Vicarage Road. Norwich are also winless on the road in 5 appearances, so I'm hopeful if we turn up we can make a game of it. Sam Field, of course, misses out on this one, having picked up his 5th yellow of the season last weekend, which means we'll likely be seeing Varane and Madsen pair up in the centre. Though Marty's recent comments on Jack Colback did suggest that he could be on track for a return in early December, so we may see him named in the squad as an option from the bench. All 3 of Elias Chair, Jake Clark-Salter and Mickey Frey were also expected to be back in December sometime, so hopefully at least one of those could be named as a substitute as well. Like I say, this is going to be a tricky one. Norwich obviously have a lot of firepower, they can do us a lot of damage, but putting a similar performance to like last weekend, Watford themselves have scored a ton of goals at Vicarage Road and we managed to keep a clean sheet there. So I personally feel like if we can play to that level, we can get something from this game, that we're going to have to be a lot more clinical with our chances if we want to get a first home win. So let's round off with a score prediction. For some reason, I'm getting 2-2 in my head, just like last season in this same fixture. So I'm going 2-2 again. Do let me know your own thoughts and score predictions in the comments below. Thank you very much for checking in with this preview, and hopefully I'll see you for the next one for my match reaction. Come on, you Ars.